What's up, everybody? It's a blue light kind of night. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and we're about to look at this video, man. Entitled "Teen Killer Does the Unthinkable When Brother Finds His Secret." I don't know, man. Sound like a grim one right now. Sound like a grim one. We about to get into it though, man. It's my first time looking at it. I'm finna look at it with y'all. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below.
Brian and Elaine Spittler's 20-year-old son Pat was fatally shot in the chest while they were away from home on the night of Saturday, December the 6th, 2014. Pat's death was heartbreaking and unexpected, but the case was particularly shocking because it was his 16-year-old brother Riley that had fired the shot that killed him. In the early going, investigators weren't sure if they were dealing with a spur-of-the-moment crime, a premeditated murder, or a tragic accident. However, the investigation took two surprising turns when they found out about the brothers' tumultuous relationship and how Riley got the gun in the first place.
I can already tell this one right here, this one finna be like a real big like plot twist. I already know it.
Before we begin, we would like to express our sincere condolences to the Spittler family for their loss. Pat and Riley Spittler,
Rest in peace, man. Rest in peace.
Both born and raised in the city of Jackson, Michigan, approximately 80 miles or 130 kilometers west of Detroit. Despite having just 32,000 residents, Jackson has a significantly higher crime rate than many other small cities in Michigan or in other parts of the country. Even so, Patrick and Riley lived relatively normal childhoods, but their personalities couldn't have been more different. Riley was distant, moody, and introverted. Pat was personable, funny, and socially active. And as they aged, their lives went in entirely different directions. Riley hung out with a bad crowd, used drugs, and dropped out of high school in the 9th grade. He eventually got a job at McDonald's, but he made far more money selling drugs for his friend who was a dealer. Compared to Riley, Pat was a straight arrow. He had a solid work ethic, took his studies seriously, and enrolled at Jackson Community College after graduating high school. Pat worked at a local food service company and had another job at the Jackson YMCA, where he did everything from coaching youth sports to driving a bus. His boss at the YMCA said he was a reliable employee and that guests and other staff members were drawn to his positive, enthusiastic, and caring personality. Pat often put in 18 to 20-hour days, but he managed to find enough free time to attend church and hang out with his friends as well. Riley even admitted that he and his brother just didn't like one another.
Wasn't even like average siblings that, they fight and at the end of the day, they make up. No, just like straight up, we just didn't like each other. Yeah.
So, and it sounds like that's because he would, if I put it into my words, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like he kind of belittled you and talked down to you.
Yeah, a lot. Well, most
had to treat you like he knew everything and you didn't know squat for it.
Hey, man, it's always like that, man. It's always like polar opposites. Like straight polar opposites. Red and blue, black and white. You know what I'm saying? Like oil and water. It's always like that, man.
All intents and purposes of that.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
When you shop with the Shipt app, you open the door to the light. Because with Shipt, every day has that new toy smell.
Did I really just let the commercial play? I really did just let the commercial play.
He also claimed that Pat wasn't the angel that everyone thought he was, that he often bullied and belittled him at home and in front of kids in the neighborhood. Pat may have picked on Riley when they were kids, but he cared about his brother too. He didn't like that he dropped out of school, used drugs, or hung out with losers. He knew that Riley was smarter than he let on, which was why he found it so frustrating that his life was going in such a bad direction.
He thought that my life was going down drain, and, if he's in this car, if that type of stuff exists, he probably, would agree with you two gentlemen that I probably should be behind bars or whatever, but he told me to stop doing this shit a long time ago, and he disagreed with basically everything.
Pat regularly encouraged Riley to get his act together, but he had to tread lightly because he had a bad temper and he didn't like taking unsolicited advice. On one occasion, in the fall of 2015, they actually came to blows after Pat criticized Riley too harshly. Pat wrestled Riley to the ground after some pushing and a few errant punches, but this wasn't the first time they had gotten into an altercation.
Yo, man, look. If it's one thing I learned, you can't tell nobody, like, get your act together. Like, either they want to do it or not. Either it's in them or it's not. And everybody going to be who they going to be. You feel me? I know that for sure. But, they brothers, though. So, of course, he going to, like, coerce them to try to, do better. But, you're going to change if you want to.
He kept on talking about, I'm never going to make good choices. He's like, your life, you're just a loser. You're not going anywhere. And then I just got mad at him. I said, you're making me mad. And he's like, so do something about it. So I pushed him, and then he pushed me back. And then as soon as he did that, I punched him. Well, I didn't connect really well. I got him, like, in the throat. And then he put me in the ground, basically just restrained me with all his force. Okay. And I was just, like, could hardly breathe, and I just, I tapped out.
About the same time, Riley allegedly pulled a gun on Pat during a similar encounter. It was unclear if Pat knew Riley had a gun in the house, but their father definitely.
Now, once you pull guns on me, then ain't no coming back from that. If you pull a weapon, any type of weapon, a knife, but he pulled a gun, ain't no coming back from you pulling a gun on me.
Did not know because he did not allow firearms in his home. But Riley's mother knew he had at least 3 handguns and a sizable stash of marijuana hidden in his bedroom. He told her he was holding it for one of his drug-dealing friends who had just been charged with a gun-related offense.
Did you show her the 380?
The 380, yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Showed her the 380.
So your mom knew then if you showed her the revolver, and what, describe the revolver to me.
It's like a 6-shot.
Okay, what color is it?
Brown finish on the wood and black barrel.
Clearly, totally different looking gun than the other one, right? One's a revolver,
yeah.
One's a semi-automatic,
yeah,
right?
Basically, yeah.
So you showed your mom both guns, though, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So she knew that you had more than one gun in the house, right?
Yeah.
And she knew that you had.
I told her that the revolver. That's what I told her.
But she knew you had it in the
Yeah,
house.
I told her that I was holding on to it for him so he doesn't get in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your mom also knew that you
She
had.
said get it out of the house as soon as possible.
Good enough for me. But your mom also knew that you had
She had
weed
the 3,
in the house.
the personal weed, for myself. Yeah, I told her about that. Yeah. She didn't know about all the weed that was in that one bag though that you guys found.
Okay.
Whoever the hell found.
But I'm just trying to do the math on this because it sounded to me like you were saying my mom had no idea there was drugs in the house, but now it sounds like you're saying my mom did know there was drugs in the house, and my mom also knew there were multiple guns in the house.
She knew that there was my weed, my personal weed, and then she knew that there was a revolver that I'd showed her when she gave it to me, and then she knew that I had 380.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha.
However,
He tried not to snitch, though. Okay, he did try not to. He tried not to snitch, but police forced him to snitch.
she chose not to tell her husband, call authorities, or punish her underage son. Instead, she told him to get rid of the guns and the drugs as soon as possible, which he never did. The truth was, 16-year-old Riley already knew how to control and manipulate his mother. She didn't like confrontation or tension in the home, and Riley threatened to run away if she told his father. Later,
But see, now what we're going to do, we're going to skip a little bit, right? We're going to skip ahead a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because what I want to do, I want to know, what his secret was. You know what I'm saying? So now I want to see.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with
his brother and asked if he thought it was his lucky day. We will never know if this amused or angered Pat, or whether he was indifferent to his little brother's dangerous and reckless behavior. Whatever the case, Riley apparently thought the chamber was empty because he had ejected the round just a second or two before. Then he squeezed the trigger, and when he did, a deafening crack shattered the calm. The bullet punched through Pat's chest and struck his heart. According to Riley, Pat said, "You shot me." When he realized what he had done, he had told his mortally wounded brother that he loved him and that he had to try to breathe as normally as he could. He also claimed that he held one hand over the gaping wound and dialed 911 with the other. During the call, he told the 911 operator that he had shot his brother and that they needed to hurry because he may have killed him. When the dispatcher asked Riley to describe what happened, he said they were playing with a gun and that he accidentally shot his brother. Next, Riley rushed through the house to meet the officers and paramedics out front, but the glass storm door was jammed and he had to shatter it with his fist. Officers from the Blackman-Leone Public Safety Department arrived at approximately 7:25 p.m. When they first saw Riley, he was shirtless, crying, standing in broken glass and covered with blood. He immediately told them that he had shot his brother and that he was probably already dead. Paramedics took Riley to an ambulance and treated his hand while officers and EMT went inside to check on Pat.
Into the cop car or whatever, the back of it, he said, "Sit right here," and then took me out of it, took me to the ambulance. I was asking, is my brother okay? Is my brother okay? And
I think I scrolled past the secret part because he already got to the shot. So I think I scrolled past, or maybe we can just keep on going and see why he shot his brother.
He wouldn't say anything to me. He said, they're taking care of him, and I guess that was to make me, stay calm or whatever. But I knew it was the worst of what I was thinking.
Sadly, they could not detect a pulse and pronounced him dead at 8:05 p.m. Later, first responders lied and said they didn't know how Pat was when Riley repeatedly asked if he was dead or alive. Elaine and Brian Spittler had just turned onto their street when they were confronted with every parent's worst nightmare. Flashing lights, police, and emergency vehicle, all in front of their home. Brian initially thought one of the boys may have left a kitchen burner on and started a fire. Riley was not arrested that night because officers thought the shooting was accidental. After all, he was distraught when they arrived on the scene, and he repeatedly claimed that he thought the gun was empty when he pointed it at his brother and pulled the trigger.
And I was just, aiming it at him, just joking around. I know how to decock it, once it's loaded. So I loaded up, cocked it back, and
I mean, I don't know about nobody else, but I don't joke around by aiming a gun at nobody. I mean, a few your mama jokes or roasting somebody, something like that, but I don't joke around aiming a gun at somebody. But that's just me.
I thought I, decocked it. And then I didn't realize that, if the magazine's still in there, that it can still go off, because it'll just reload another one. And I pulled the trigger, and I hit him right in the chest. He died about maybe 3 minutes after. And then I called 911 as soon as the shot went off. I was freaking out. I was screaming. I'm sure there's like a recording of the call if you ever wanted to go back to it. But it just all happened.
And you said you loaded it?
It was already loaded.
Do you know how many rounds were in it?
Yeah, I had counted before. It was like 6.
Okay. And you went to decock it. When you say you went to decock it, how do you do that?
Well, I'd show it to you, but I would pull my left hand on like the handle, like the grip, and then take my right hand and pull back really hard on the slide. And
okay.
Like the bullet would come out.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
But what was the secret though? We need to scroll and see what the secret was to make him shoot his brother. Let's investigate.
However, they began questioning his story when they recovered the Taurus and found the magazine was still in the grip. They then became more suspect when they found additional handguns and a fairly large amount of marijuana in Riley's room. Brian Spitzler, their father, was understandably livid when he learned that his wife had bought their wayward 16-year-old son the very handgun he had used to shoot his older brother, Pat. Later, investigators began to suspect that
So the mom bought the gun that one of her sons killed the other son with. Man. Yeah, she not gonna be able to sleep at night. I'm telling you, she like
that the shooting wasn't accidental when they found out about Pat and Riley's contentious and often violent relationship. Facebook messages also revealed that Riley was planning on hanging out with prostitutes and selling some drugs later that night. This didn't have any bearing necessarily on Pat's death, but investigators thought it went a long way towards establishing Riley's character. Another inconsistency in his story was that he claimed Pat willingly handled the same gun and told Riley to get rid of it just a week or two before. Pat had even threatened to tell their father if he did not get the gun out of the house. This could have been a source of lingering tension between the two of them, but it seemed to contradict something that Riley had told officers shortly after the shooting.
You know, like the game Russian roulette? Like we would, spin it and see what it's on, not actually pull the trigger, but just spin it to see if it lands on a bullet.
Wait a minute. We or you?
Like him too.
He was doing this also?
I gave it to him because he wanted to check it out, so I gave him the revolver. He's like, well, is this real too? And I'm just like, yeah.
Riley said that he, Pat, and a few friends had played a watered-down version of Russian roulette on at least one occasion, but they did not actually pull the trigger after spinning the old revolver's cylinder. Instead, they only looked to see if the chamber that ended up in position actually held around. It's unclear if this claim was true, but Detective Chris Bolter and his colleagues didn't think Riley's version of events added up. Revolvers and semi-automatic pistols like the Taurus 380 are very different weapons, but Riley had experience with both. As such, investigators found it hard to believe that he thought the Taurus was empty on the night of Saturday, December the 6th.
You know that when you rack a bullet out, if the magazine is in, another bullet chambers, correct?
Yes.
You know that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to talk not about what you thought, we're going to talk about what you know. So, you know that you rack one out, another one feeds in, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
When you found the gun, here's my question. My main question is, was the magazine all the way in or was it partially ejected? That's my question.
It's all the way in.
It's all the way in? Because I don't know, and I'm not even saying that I remember correctly if I had pressed the eject button or not, but if I had pressed the eject button at the time, maybe I thought, because like I said, if one went in the chamber, and after I decocked the gun, maybe I thought when I pressed the eject button that it would be okay. Maybe that's why I felt it was safe to pull the trigger. I don't know. He's dead now. I did pull the trigger. Those are the facts. But I don't know, man.
Well, the magazine's still in the gun when you racked the round out, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Man. Bro. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say.
According to them, it was a far more likely scenario that Riley went into Pat's room to impress him or perhaps even intimidate him into dropping the gun issue altogether. If so, Pat may have told Riley to get out of his room, threatened to tell their father, or insulted and belittled him in a way that caused him to lose his temper. Either way, they believed Pat and Riley had a disagreement. Riley knew the gun was loaded and that the shooting was intentional.
I think you feel really bad about what happened with your brother.
That's kind of how I feel. I feel like it was of course it was. Of course it was intentional for whatever reason. You know, sibling rivalry gone wrong, very wrong.
I do. All right, I want you to know that I think that you feel really, really bad about what happened with your brother. Your brother isn't here. And I believe you that you love your brother. I believe despite all the disagreements, despite all the fights, despite every time you would get upset with him and you guys would fight when he would try to help you out.
Let's fly a little fast forward a little bit.
In his opening statement, Riley's defense attorney, Alfred Brandt, readily admitted that his client killed his brother Pat. There was no disputing that, but Mr. Brandt described the death as an awful tragedy. He also conceded that Riley was a troubled child who had a number of weapons and a large amount of marijuana in the home. In addition, he pointed out that Pat and Riley were the only two people in the home that night, and that the state would have to establish
Pat and Riley. And not I got a Miami Heat hat on. Pat and Riley.
Intent if they wanted a first or second degree murder conviction. When Blackman Leone Township Public Safety Department Sergeant Steve Stowe took the stand on day 2, he said Riley was hysterical when officers arrived at the home on the night of Pat's death. This was a rare bright spot for the defense because on the surface, it showed the jury that Riley had remorse and was not an emotionless teen killer. However, the jury got an entirely different view when images of drugs and weapons taken from Riley's room were shown alongside the photos of Pat's lifeless body. Riley turned his face to the side and sobbed when he was confronted with the pictures of his dead brother. At the end of a surprisingly short 5-day trial, the jury adjourned to decide which, if any, crimes Riley could be convicted of. If they returned with a first-degree murder conviction, he could spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. But if they found him guilty of second-degree murder, he would eventually be eligible for parole. And last, he most likely serve a 15-year sentence if found guilty of manslaughter. The jury also had to consider the gun and drug charges, which together could carry an additional 6 years behind bars on top of or concurrent with any other sentence that was handed down. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury re-entered the emotionally charged courtroom. Riley and his tense parents looked on with guarded hope that the verdict would be read in their favor, but it was far worse than they had expected. The jury found Riley guilty of second-degree murder, possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute, and 2 counts of possessing a firearm during a felony. The Spitlers were understandably crushed, but it could have been worse if he had been convicted of first-degree murder. Riley's father, Brian, addressed the court and pled for leniency before the sentence was read aloud.
So, as I am here representing my family, it is my contention that the jury got the verdict wrong, based on the information that was presented by the prosecution. Now, the defense did not put up a defense. We understand that Riley has to be punished, that he acted in a reckless manner. I lost my other side. I get that. But I'm also his father, and I don't want to lose my second son. I don't want him incarcerated for a long period of time. None of my family does. Because, first of all, I do not believe incarcerating him for a long time is going to serve any other purpose than punishment and vengeance.
But despite his best efforts, the judge sentenced Riley to between 24 and 46 years in prison.
24.
He'd be eligible for parole after 20 years when he was nearly 40. But his parents struggled to contain their emotions in face of what they had just seen as an exceptionally hard and harsh sentence. Afterward, Brian Spittler verbally attacked the prosecution for seeking such a lengthy prison sentence, largely because Riley was a minor when he shot and killed his older brother, Pat. Jackson County Assistant Prosecutor Steve I.
Look, man, we're going to end it right there, man. But look, if I was to say anything about this, man, it's never that serious, man. You better put that gun down. If it's, you know, to that point where you get so mad, at least just bro, swing on your brother. Swing on him. Because 24, 46 years. I mean, the man, he gonna get to start his life when you know, after 40. Not worth it, bro. And then your brother gone. So yeah, like the pop said, you lost both of your sons, you know. I understand the pop's frustration, but you know, justice system is the justice system at the end of the day, man. But anyway, man, you know, like, comment, subscribe, man. Definitely is a blue light kind of night, bro. I'm out.